I was born in DuQuoin, Illinois, 326 North Linden Street, on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock on August 13th, 1933. My grandfather and grandmother, Leo and Antonia Pizzolatto, were childhood sweethearts. They lived next door to each other from the time they were little bitty kids. There was a gate between their two houses, and they'd swing on that gate together. They'd swing on the gate. That's all they talked about, swinging on that gate. And then when they grew up, they got married. And my grandmother had Lena, and she was pregnant with my mother. And my grandfather decided that he was going to America, because that's when I think all those Italian people were coming to America to make their fortune. And she lived with her brother while he was gone. And then he sent word for her to come, but my mom was 3 years old by then. She always says she was 3 when they came. Her and her mother and my Aunt Lena came on a boat to America. And they almost got sent back to Italy because my mother had an eye infection. And they kept them there 1 week and medicated her eyes and said, if she's not better in a week, you're going back to Italy. Well, they were scared to death, you know. But thank God, when they rechecked my mom's eyes, they were fine, so they let them stay. And my grandfather had a brother who lived in New York, and I guess they connected with them. And then they didn't like New York. So where did they go after that? They went to DuQuoin, I think. Yeah, they did, because my grandfather had another brother in DuQuoin who was working in the coal mines. And he said, come here, you can get a job in the coal mines, you know. So they did that. Well, my grandfather did not like the coal mines. So they moved to St. Louis. And when they moved to St. Louis, they were working at 12 years old. My mom only went to 6th grade, because then they went to work in the factories, the clothing factories, sewing on the machines or whatever. And then while they were living in St. Louis, my mother's little 8-year-old sister was killed by a hit-and-run driver. Well, my grandmother went bananas, and she says, I'm not staying here anymore, I'm not living here, we're leaving. So they went back to DuQuoin, and that's when my grandfather opened the little corner grocery store. And that's how they made their living all their life. And that's how my mom ended up permanently in DuQuoin. And my dad, I don't know exactly how he got to DuQuoin, because he was in Italy, and in Italy the military was compulsory. When a guy reached 19, they had to go away for a year, go in service. And he did that. But he had in his mind to come to America, but he wanted to do his service to Italy before he did that. And so when his year was up, his commanding officer, who he was working for, that guy had a horse or something, and my dad was like real close with this colonel or commander, whoever he was. And the guy said to him, Tony, he says, I like to keep you on. You come where I live and I'll give you a job, you know, and let you work. He said, no. He says, I'm going home to Sicily to see my mother, and then I'm going to America. And I believe Sirocco was already in DuQuoin. He did not serve the Italian. He left before he had to serve. So anyway, I guess that's how my dad got to DuQuoin. I don't know. I guess he just went to, I never heard anything else, or I don't remember anything else. So, and he went to work, you know, in the coal mines, and it was, by the time I came along, it was depression, everybody was poor, everybody, you know, it was no luxury living, that's for sure. He had a cousin named Sam Licata that was living in DuQuoin at a time, and my dad was 30. And I guess this cousin was kind of saying, Tony, you need to find a wife, and because I think he was living in a rented room or something. So he said, there's a lady over there a few blocks away that's got 4 daughters. Go ask them. That's what they did. They said, go ask them if you can marry one of your daughters. So anyway, and they always went that the oldest had to get married first, So he did. He went to my grandpa and said, I'm looking for a wife. Can I marry one of your daughters? Or he thought it would have been Lena, because Lena was the oldest. And my grandfather said, well, she's already going to marry Pete Biondo. I don't know if they were engaged and they were waiting. I don't know. Anyway, he couldn't get Lena because, not that he wanted Lena, he just assumed that since she was the oldest, that would be the one. So he said, well, how about the next one then? Which was my mom. So my grandmother says, if you build her a house, you can marry her. So this is bad. Anyway, he built a house, nice 4-room, brand new bungalow on Hickory Street, and they lived in it a year. And he came home one day and he says, we're moving because I sold the house. Well, my mom went ballistic, my grandmother went ballistic and all that. But he had seen the property on Linden Street with those 2 lots, and he wanted that big yard, but the house was a mess. Now, I think personally, in my heart, I think he sold that house to spite my grandmother, because she had said to him, you can marry my daughter if you build her a house. And he was a hard-headed sort of person. I mean, he was a good man, he was a hard worker. It's just like, well, nobody's going to tell me what I have to do. And that was a bone of contention all the rest of their life, really, because my mom really was upset that he didn't even ask her, you know what I mean? He just sold it. Sold it to John Newmy, they said. I knew John Newmy. But he really liked that house had those 2 lots, because he would plow it up and plant. To him, I think he thought he was back in Italy, sort of. Have the big garden and a little piece of land and all that, When she wanted something done, something was broken, he always had to do it himself. Like I can, and he could do stuff, but, well, first place, I guess they had no money to hire, or it was hard to get anything new. You always had to fix what you had, and it was a hard life coming through that depression. It was pretty bad for people. So, and then he worked, I don't know if the mines laid off people or what, and then finally he got work on the WPA for men to work, because everybody was starving. They'd meet somewhere in town or wherever, I think, and they'd go out on trucks. They'd take them out on trucks, and they'd go out and, like at the strip mines where the ground was all dug up, well, then they would plant trees or cut the grass along the highways or anything to get them to work. Pay was $11 a week. How are you going to live on $11 a week, although everything was cheap? Like Nana's favorite saying in all the world, eggs were 10 cents a dozen, but who had a dime? If I heard her say that once, I heard her say it a million times. And that's why Big Tony Licata and Dad each had put a dime in her dress when she died. Neither one knew the other one did it. So she got buried with 20 cents. Well, I didn't know any different. I just thought everybody lived the way we lived. I was always barefooted, running around, going. I loved oranges, so once my mom had let me go to the Nanu store, I said, okay, go get yourself an orange. So I'd get an orange, or get candy out of the candy thing. I didn't think anything of it. I just was there and had my little friends down the street and played and went to school. Didn't think nothing of it, I just thought everybody lived the way we lived. Well, Jack was 4.5 years older than me, and we played a lot around, but you know how he was always off with his friends. He didn't want to mess around with the little sister. And then he went to service. As soon as he got out of high school, him and Philip Bruno went and signed up because they were best buddies, and they thought, we'll go to the Army together. And they went through boot camp together. As soon as boot camp was over, Philip got sent to Germany and Jack got sent to Japan. They didn't see each other again for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was. But that was after World War II. They was in what they called the occupation forces. So, but he went to Rolla. He's an engineer. We always had a close relationship. It's just like when I wanted to be the tag along when I was little, and he didn't want me tagging along, which my mother wouldn't let me anyway. So, well, I turned 5 years old on April 13th. See, because that's my birthday. So my mom sends me to kindergarten at the Catholic school. And I guess we started in September then, like they always used to. Well, I had never been that close to a nun. And in DuQuoin at that time, we had the real nuns that wore the big black habits. And I was scared to death of the nun. And this nun that ran the kindergarten and first grade in DuQuoin sort of had a reputation for being rough on the kids. I don't know why they kept her there as long as they did. But anyway, I go in the room for the kindergarten and first grade. I think it was all in one room. And my brother was in the next room because they must have had like fourth grade over there or something. So, and I think we only had a half a day of school that first day. And I was sitting there in my seat, and I was sort of probably trembling because I was scared of this thing walking around in this black outfit. And it got close to the time that we were supposed to be dismissed. And she was writing on the blackboard, so her back was to me. So I must have figured I was going to leave. I got up out of my seat, walked to the door. Well, in the meantime, she had turned around and saw me going to the door, and she says, "Where are you going?" And I probably started crying. I said, "I'm going home. I want my brother." And she came down the aisle to me, and I think she grabbed me by the back of my hair and said, "Go to your seat." And I kicked her in the shin because she had me by my hair. Just about that time, the door opened and my brother was there because he was supposed to walk me home because I'm a 5-year-old kid, And so we left. I mean, she let us leave. And so Jack's taking me home by the hand, and we get home and he says, "Mom, the nun beat her up." So what do you mean? She did slap me. She had slapped me on my face. I actually had a hand mark. Maybe that's when I kicked her, when she slapped me. It was either when she had my hair or she slapped me. I don't remember. But anyway, what do you mean she got beat up? So Jack said, "Yeah, and Sister Mary Daniels hit her because she wanted to leave. She was scared." So my mom grabs me by my arm. Vroom. Back we go to that school. She marches in that school. I can vaguely remember this, her having me by my arm and practically dragging me. She was walking so fast. She marches in that school. Of course, everybody's gone because we had a half a day of school. Of course, the nuns are there because they live there. "I want to see Sister Superior." Oh, somebody runs and gets the Sister Superior, and she says, and I could still see the mark on my face. She says, "See what that nun did," or Mary Daniels, whatever, that was her name, did to my little girl. And so they had a discussion, blah, blah, blah. And my mom said, "That's it, I'm taking her out of here. She's not going to go to school here." So I don't know if the nun got in trouble. That nun should have been fired. But anyway, she took me to public school the next day, and I went kindergarten, first and second grade to the public school, Well, in third grade, you make your first communion, and you have to get all the instructions, and they teach you all that stuff. So she wanted me to make my first communion, so she takes me back to the Catholic school. Says, I want to see Sister Superior. So they have a discussion. She says, I want her to come back and go to school here because I want her to make her first communion. And I know she's got to have all the instructions and all that. And she said, but I'll tell you one thing, if anybody lays a hand on her, one finger, he says, you will see me again. She read him the riot act. And Sister Superior said, oh, no, don't worry, Mrs. Licata. Nobody will touch her. And so then I went from third grade through eighth grade at the Catholic school. And then I went to public high school. Well, we met through my cousin Tina Licata Gaccioni on a more or less a blind date. I was only 15 years old. He was 18. And my cousin Tina was supposed to take me to a movie because I had been staying here in St. Louis with my Aunt Lena for a few weeks because her husband was very ill in the hospital and she wanted me to come and stay with her. So my mom said, yeah, I could come and stay with her. So Tina knew I had only been going back and forth from Barnes Hospital to visit my uncle all the time, So she said, I'll take you to a movie. And in the meantime, this guy that she had been wanting to have a date with for a long time asked her out for that same night. So she called me, she says, I don't know what to do. She says, I promised you I would take you to the movie. But this guy, I don't know what his name was, asked me out, and I hate to say no because then he might not ask me out again. So I said, well, go ahead and go out with him. I said, you and I can go to a movie another night. That'll be okay. So she said, no, I just really feel bad about this. She said, should I get somebody for you to go out with? And I said, I'm not allowed to date. She says, well, I'll get somebody nice and we'll go on a double date. So she called your father, he was, like I say, was 18, and asked him if he would go on this date. Well, just by chance, he had seen me one time at their farm. They had the peach orchard in DuQuoin, Illinois, my uncle. So it was peach season, and a whole bunch of the Ingracias had come down to visit Sirocans because they were real close-knit. They knew them from Italy. And they came down to spend a day picking peaches. So they came, and I was there because we always helped with the peaches. But he said he thought I was a 12-year-old kid. I don't think he even said hi to me that day because I was there working with the peaches, and they were picking peaches and all kind of stuff. And so that's just a little background of when she asked him. You remember it was my cousin you saw at the farm that day when we were all there picking peaches. He said, I'm not going out with a 12-year-old kid. She said, she's not 12, she's 15, which there really isn't much difference. But he said, no, Tina, I don't want to. And she said, please, Angelo, do it as a favor to me. So he said, okay, I'll go. He wasn't too thrilled about it. So I really had nothing to wear, so we had to raid my cousin Mary's closet because she always had the nice clothes to get me something to wear. And we went on the date, and we just really clicked, I liked him, and he liked me, and he called the next day, and even my Aunt Lena didn't know about this. And I thought, oh my God, my mom's going to kill me if she ever finds out. But that was it. We didn't go to a movie. We went to the Stardust room at the Chase Park Plaza because this guy that dated Tina had some tickets to go there. I don't know if they had food because I can't remember that we ate. But they had drinks, drinks and dancing. It was a starlight room. When you danced, I don't know if they turned ceiling stuff on and it looked like you were dancing under the stars. So, and I think on the second date we went on the Admiral with Tina, and I don't know if that guy was the same guy or a different guy she got. I don't remember. That's been, what, 70 years ago. He used to ride the Greyhound bus down. He had no car. Once in a while I would come on the bus and stay at my Aunt Lena's house. And when his unit got activated and he knew he was going to be leaving, that's when he gave me my diamond ring we got engaged, because he said he didn't want me loose while he was gone because somebody else would come along. So he wanted to make sure we were engaged before he left. Well, he had a conversation with my father, and my father says, "Is this what you want to do to me?" And I said, "Yes." And my mother said, "Where's the ring?" It was so funny, because when he came to talk to my dad, he hadn't bought the ring, because he didn't know for sure if my dad would kick him out, But my dad liked him because he was an Italian, Sicilian boy. They basically knew the family, so he was Italian, So he was for it. My mother was never for it. But she just didn't want, well, she knew when I got married, if I married him, I'd be moving away, for one thing. Because there were a lot of Italian girls in DuQuoin who never got married because they were kept under the thumb of the parents. And, it was just the old-fashioned tradition, I guess. We wrote letters back and forth all that time. I think by the time he came home, we had like 125 letters or something between the two of us. And when we bought our house in Hazelwood, we had all these letters in a box. We're moving. We said, what are we going to do with all these letters? Well, we should have kept them, but we decided we would burn them. So we just burned the whole box of letters. We just thought they were private. They were ours. We didn't want anybody else to read them. So we decided we'd just burn them. And that's what we did. He got home in July of 52, and we got married October 11th of 52. And we had kind of an unusual wedding because naturally they wanted, his parents and that, they said, well, let's have the wedding in St. Louis. No. I was born and raised in DuQuoin. My family was from DuQuoin, so I was going to get married in DuQuoin. So we did at 8 o'clock in the morning. Had to get married because Father Hafner actually had another wedding scheduled that day. I think that wedding was at 10 o'clock. So he said, if you want that date, you're going to have to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning. He said, because I can't do another wedding after the second wedding. Because at that time, the priests were not allowed to eat or drink anything before they said a mass, because they had to do the communion thing, during the mass. And he was very old and sickly by that time. So we said, okay, we'll take 8 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of rough getting everybody ready, but we had 3 bridesmaids, and Cookie was 7 years old. She was a little flower girl. And then we went back to my mother and dad's house, and while we were at church having the wedding, my dad had his cousin come and do a big barbecue of zazitza. My grandfather made, because he used to make the homemade zazitza. And I forgot that guy's name. But anyway, he cooked all the zazitza, and the women made salad and all that, and we had a big breakfast at the house there. And then we went to the fairgrounds and took all the fairground pictures. And then we left, everybody drove to St. Louis, and we had a reception at the Hamilton Hotel at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever, that evening, with a sit-down dinner. I think it was chicken, and a dance with the live band, and that was it. So we had a really nice wedding to plan in 3 months.